in Los Angeles, despite many who believe that it's time for a coaching change, and I still think they are underestimating the way that Saturday night's loss is going to hover over the team until major changes are made. A half measure, if you will, happened on Tuesday when offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi was fired. He's the grandson of Vince, by the way, and Shane Day, the quarterback's coach, out the door. So there is accountability. And I remember when Brandon Staley was hired as a defensive guy. Hey, if this goes really well with Justin Herbert, you're going to lose your offensive coordinator because he's going to become a head coach somewhere else. Well, 2 years later, Staley throwing his offensive coordinator and quarterback's coach overboard basically to save his own ass. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with doing that. That happens. Guys you've hired to come in and work with you end up getting fired because it's not working. And there's an element of self-preservation that goes on in this job, Chris, when you're talking about head coaches.
Yeah.
It's either them or me. And if I don't let go of these guys, I'm going to be the one who's gone. And I remember there was a time when coaches would draw a line in the sand and refuse.
Sure.
I'm not firing my staff.
Sure.
Okay, pack up your shit and get out of here. Sorry, first 15 minutes of the show. But pack it up and go.
Yeah.
And so I think those folks realize these jobs are too few and far between to just give them up. And you give up your buyout probably, too, when you refuse an order like that. They probably got the contracts written in a way that if you are told that you're going to make staff changes and you say no, they just cross out that duty to owe you money. So, anyway, we don't see it. I remember it happening 20, 30 years ago, maybe more, a few times. We don't see it happen very often, if at all, when a head coach says, I'm not going to do it, and stares down the owner and gets thrown out the door.
No, you're right. I mean, the one that kind of jumps out to me, maybe the biggest one, would be like Mike Shanahan. I believe that's kind of how it went down with the Denver Broncos, right? There was, I think, some demands of making the staff change. And he was like, no, these people are too important to me. They're in the foxhole with me, and I'm not going to do it. And that's what ended that relationship. You know, I don't even know. I might be breaking news there. I'm not even sure if I was supposed to say that, but I said it, so it's too late now. There's got to be a limit.
That's
like
okay.
15
statute limitations.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
We got to be too far down the road there. But I don't think that's a secret by any stretch of the imagination. But yes, you're right. I think now, again, coaches are extremely loyal, but I think the assistants understand too that it's cutthroat, and they understand, hey, you're getting pressure from the powers above you that are, and trying to push you to make some big decisions here. I'm sure there is a little bit of self-preservation here by Brandon Staley. I don't think Brandon Staley should be fired. I don't. I'm one of those. I understand the conversation around it. I mean, it's 2 years. They get to the playoffs. Last year, they're on the edge of the playoffs. I think they've just this year, did they get defensive players there that made sense for his scheme? They still went through the injury thing, which has got to be dissected and fixed there with the Chargers. But ultimately, I can understand the firing of Joe Lombardi. I mean, Mike, right? I mean, again, there's some good things they've done, and he's certainly not a bad offensive mind. But I think what it really is you got something here. You got a blank canvas to go like, whoa, you can do whatever you want because we got this quarterback that can do whatever you want, like whatever. Any play in the history of football, he can do it and do it with ease. And that's where I think is kind of the glaring problem there. It's just it's too ordinary. And how many weeks did we come in here going, there's Herbert jamming in a 5-yard throw, jamming in another 5-yard throw. And I think it was lack of creativity and really using this guy's potential to its utmost that is the reason probably Joe Lombardi gets fired.
Right, but, this is where we become dog circling and chasing its own tail, because the same scrutiny that could be applied to Lombardi could be applied to Brandon Staley.
Sure.
He's got to manage his guys. He's got to demand. He's got to be involved. He's got to say, we need to get the ball down the field more. Now, and excuses we make for Staley. Well, they had a ton of injuries. Well, those excuses should be available to Joe Lombardi as well. And the one thing that we don't know and won't know is for how long Justin Herbert was messed up and how messed up he was after that rib injury in week 2 that caused him, remember, during the game to just not run. to the sticks, an easy first down. Remember that play where he just kind of pulled up and said, I can't do it? How long was he hurting, and how much did that affect his ability to get the ball down the field? It's either the injuries to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, or it's to Justin Herbert wasn't 100% until who knows when, and still may not be 100%. He's not the kind of guy who's going to say it. He's got that Matthew Stafford in him. He's quiet. Yeah. He just deals with it. He's the old gunslinger that strolls into town no matter how many bullets are riddling his body, and he just keeps going, right? That's what he is. And I just, the injury thing, they've got to get to the bottom of it. They can't just treat it as stuff happens. And I also feel like there's an element, and I don't want to pick on Dean Spanos, the owner of the Chargers here, but there's an element of content. There's an element of what I've accused the Vikings of this in the past, and I'm trying not to today. Just good enough is good enough. Being in the hunt is good enough. Being relevant past Thanksgiving is good enough. Being in the playoffs every other year is good enough. There isn't that overwhelming obsession, which can be counterproductive and unhealthy, frankly, to win a Super Bowl. And it gets you to do crazy things like give up all your draft picks and have top-heavy salary cap space devoted to a handful of aging stars and creating a situation where you have a rebuild that looks so daunting, your head coach thinks about running out the door until he realizes he's going to get shamed for running out the door. That's what the Rams have, but they got a trophy. So I think those nice Minnesota fans and maybe these tolerant Chargers fans would tolerate the back end of having a trophy. The problem is if you go all in, there's no guarantee you're getting the trophy, but you're definitely getting the problem on the back end.
Well, yeah, you are. And, again, I know you know what you're saying there. They're content with, being relevant. I hear you there. But to me, again, how many times are we going to cut the cord here? That's to be the first thing I talk about. I think we got like Anthony Lynn. That was kind of a dicey decision. Things seemed like they were going in the right direction. It was 7-9. Okay. Then when they go to Brandon Staley, that's fine. Anthony Lynn, right? There were some game management situations, and, man, he got unlucky, and they messed some games up at the end of games. Brandon Staley, hey, but we know there's been some discussions about the fourth downs and all that in year one, but still they were on the doorstep of going to the playoffs and beating the Raiders there in Las Vegas. But even last year, the offense, I think everybody in the league would say it was a little underwhelming. It was a little easy to figure out. There hasn't been a run game. And I know there was injuries, this year too, but they couldn't run last year, and some of these same problems were there last year as well. Maybe this is one where they just go, hey, I actually think we're going in the right direction here. And, to counter your point a little bit, I do think they have gone, I think, this is a step of, wait, I got a young head coach. I believed in him. I hired him. He did come up with some good defensive game plans this year against some offenses that, we know we weren't at full strength as far as the Chargers defense was concerned, and we slowed down and made life hard on some really good offenses. Miami, the 49ers, hung in there with the Chiefs both times, right? So they did that, but the offense was always a little bit like, it was just underwhelming that way. And they put money this past season into some defensive free agents, and I think building around Brandon Staley's vision here, which I also think kind of makes it harder to cut the cord too, because you're like, wait, we got some of these guys because they fit his scheme and what he does. So, man, are we really going to abandon ship here? So I understand them staying with Brandon Staley. I understand the hot poker of, you might need to make a change, and I don't disagree with this change. I got great respect for Joe Lombardi, but I do think it's an offense with this quarterback that, could use some imagination. We saw more imagination in Justin Herbert's first year under the last coaching staff. And, Shane Steichen, and who's now with the Philadelphia Eagles. And that opened our eyes more to more wow plays than we've seen the last 2 years from, Justin Herbert and this current staff.
And you mentioned that they have a blank slate now. You have an offensive coordinator who can come in and be attracted to. I saw that yesterday. I see these narratives that just are kind of lazy and tired. They get regurgitated by folks in this business. I'm not going to name names, but just the idea, this instantly becomes the most attractive offensive coordinator job. Does it? Does it really? Yes, you're working with Justin Herbert, but, we've seen coaches on the hot seat struggle to get an offensive coordinator because that person knows I am stepping into a situation where everyone's job is riding on my ability to come in here and fix this. Look, last year, Matt Rule was unable to get a high-end offensive coordinator, settled for Ben McAdoo, and what happened? Rule was gone October 10.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
So that's the downside of this. On one hand, you get to work with Justin Herbert. On the other hand, if you don't make it work quickly, everybody's out of work. That's the downside of this. So I don't know that it's as attractive as the knee-jerk you get to work with Justin Herbert crowd would say.
Well, I hear you there. It's great risk, great reward kind of chance or take your chance you're taking there a little bit. I don't disagree with you there, but I think the good ones are the ones who really do they're going to just go, well, we got something here. Because the one thing there's two things they're going to look at with that Justin Herbert conversation. They're going to go, one, okay, he's freaking awesome. And then they're going to go, two, whoa, the O-line, healthy. Even the other night, what we saw, Jacksonville couldn't get close to Justin Herbert for a good part of the football game. And they weren't even at full strength. So they're going to look at that and go, wait, there's two pieces there right away. And then, okay, we got a Keenan Allen, who I know is smart and I can do a lot of stuff with, and Austin Eckler out of the backfield. And, now, hey, maybe we need to add a little sizzle and splash, another speed guy to this. But this guy is too much of a rare freak to be throwing normal West Coast BS slant flat, double slant, 5-yard out with the flat route, bullcrap type of plays. This is the guy you go, no, you drop back over here. We're going to keep the tight end in here. And this guy run the fake cross post over the top. And this guy come under here and go this way. And, hey, big guy, you're protected and unleash it. And they just don't do enough of that. And we saw, like I was saying, more in 2020 than we did the last 2 years with this current regime. And that's where, again, I just don't think they're maximizing the potential. And I think that's ultimately what they've come to the decision of, that they just should be more dangerous on that side of the ball, regardless, even with some of the injuries. Their attack itself, even when healthy, is not dangerous, creative enough, and all those things that we talk about, Mike. And it'd be interesting. He's got to do his homework here, Brandon Staley, because like you're saying, if it doesn't go well and they barely get in the playoffs and lose or don't get in the playoffs, he's going to get fired. He is. But if he can find the right guy here,
I don't know. Is he? Is he?
I don't know. You're right. Well, he's going to have the conversation around
before we close
him.
the book.
Right.
Before we close the book on the Chargers, let's hear from Justin Herbert on whether he believes in his current head coach, Brandon Staley.
Of course, we believe in Coach Staley in the front office, 100%. Everyone would be lucky to have a coach like Staley. He's been an incredible leader. He's got the respect of everyone on our team. He's genuine. He's himself, and we believe in him. And he's been the same person the past 2 years. And, it didn't go our way this year, but we took a big step forward. And we believe in this coaching staff, this team. We've got the right pieces. We just got to put them together. We've got to execute better.
And look, you expect a quarterback to be loyal to his coach. I don't put a lot of stock in that. He's not going to come out and say, man, if we just had a better head coach, we'd still be playing. We wouldn't have lost that game. We would have run the ball more instead of pass it when we were up by 20 points or more in the game.
Run the ball more, Mike, or even find like some creative ways to get short screens, completions, swing passes where, okay, we're not a good running team, but here's some good ways to throw the ball that keeps the clock running and we maybe get a few yards. I think that was what was disappointing too. All and done. Sorry I cut you off. That was a good point.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. But regardless, look, Justin Herbert's now eligible for a second contract. That's a business issue that's hovering over the Chargers. They're going to have to pay him a lot of money at some point. And if they do move on from Brandon Staley, it's going to cost money there. Now, with each passing year, there's less of a buyout, but you got to replace him. And that was a job that I think both Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh would have wrestled with each other to try to get. And look, Harbaugh staying put at Michigan, he may be saying, hey, if the Chargers aren't any better, that job may open up, and then there's my opportunity to go back to the NFL with Justin Herbert and try to see what I can do. It's still a tough division.
Yes.
We don't know who Denver's going to get to be their head coach.
Right.
We don't know what the Raiders are going to do under Josh McDaniels, where they go from here at quarterback, and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and they are still the cream of the crop, and this is the year they all came after the Chiefs, and we saw what happened. they all ultimately fell flat. Although if the Chargers had managed to win that game,
yeah, they're scary
Chargers
matchup.
and Chiefs this weekend
Yeah.
would have been very, very interesting. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.